Greetings, Benjamin J. from BENZTRAINZ with another in the series. Well, what you're looking at was that Marx motor that arrived the other day. Got it for $3. Got two motors, actually. This and that Lionel AC motor. Anyway, got them both for $6. And the AC motor, of course, I put in that 8200 switcher. Anyway, I was going to use this one for parts, and since I had nothing to do, I took it in, put it on the bench, was getting ready to disassemble it, started looking at it, and I thought, let's see if we can try to get this thing running. So as you see, the E unit is completely gone. It was just absolutely beat to death. Why anybody would do this to a motor, I have absolutely no idea. So obviously did the bypass, found a contactor. The contactor was completely missing. The contactor plate was broken. So an easy repair is just to repair the contactor plate with a small piece of steel, as you see, and some epoxy putty. It only takes a few minutes to do this. And the tab was broken off that holds the contactor. So you can just replace it with a small piece of steel, piece of wood, a toothpick will work, anything. And just got it bonded to the contactor plate. Put a spring in it, put a contactor on it, and just got this thing finished. That being a relative term, of course. Anyway, just wanted to do a quick video. As I always stress, don't overlook the junk. And I bought this for parts. And I was going to go ahead and cannibalize it, but since I had absolutely nothing to do tonight, I figured I'd try to get it running. This is the result. That's a double reduction motor. As you see, that motor is running just absolutely perfectly. E-unit's been ripped out of it. Contactor plate was broken. Contactor was gone, completely gone. So just put a contactor on it, repaired the contactor plate, did the E-unit bypass so I could run it. And as you see, for being absolute junk, this motor is running. And it's actually running really, really well, surprisingly enough. So I could put a set of push rods on this, put a crossbar on it, and actually put it in a locomotive. Am I going to? I have no idea. I bought it for parts. I was completely out of parts. And this way I get the wheels, the brushes, the brush springs, the armature. Anyway, the E-unit, as you see, has been gutted out of this motor. And this is all just absolute abuse. And again, why anybody would do this to a motor, I have no idea. But it was majorly tweaked on both ends. It was never going to run again. So for $3, I figured if nothing else, I would just strip it for parts. A set of wheels is $10 on eBay. So in any case, I put a couple minutes into it just to see if I could get it running, just to give me something to do. And as you see, it was time well spent. I mean, this thing was junk, bottom of the barrel junk that I bought just for parts. And even in the condition it's in, it is running. And not only is it running, it is running perfectly. Now, of course, it runs forward only because there is no E-unit. But as you see, that double reduction motor is running perfectly with no problems at all. So I could, like I said, I could put a set of push rods on this, put a front crossbar on it, and put it in a locomotive. Whether I'm going to or not, I have no idea. I did this just to give myself something to do and to see if it could actually be repaired. And as you see, this motor is absolute trash. I mean, I bought this for $3 just to pull it apart and strip it for parts. The E-unit was just absolutely butchered in this thing. You can see the side plates are just absolutely majorly tweaked, and yet it's a great testament to Marx Motors. With a little bit of work, and I mean just a little bit of work, I had to repair the contactor plate, put a contactor on it, wire it, of course, and it's up and running. And not only is it running, it's running perfectly. That's why I always stress, don't overlook the junk. If you know how these motors work, you can have these things running in a matter of minutes, unless there's something physically, mechanically wrong with it. A coil is open, the armature has been destroyed, or has an open coil, something. But in this case, I didn't have to do anything to it at all, except put a contactor on it, took the remnants of the E-unit out of it, and that E-unit was, like I said, it was just absolutely butchered. Why anybody would do this to a motor, I have absolutely no idea. I mean, what did they gain by doing this? They destroyed this motor. This motor was never going to run again, ever. You know, it was junk. I bought it just for parts. And yet, just a few minutes, you can get these things repaired. Like I said, the contactor plate, as you see, was broken. And a bit of epoxy putty, and you can put an extension on that broken contactor plate. In this case, this is an old, dull drill bit. And some epoxy putty to hold it in position. Put a spring under the contactor. You see, this is an old, nasty contactor. And then wired it directly to the main coil. And when you do these bypasses, you apply power to this side of the coil. This side of the coil goes to the brushes, and the motor will run. And I just wanted to see if I could actually get it running. But as you see, not only is it running, it's running perfectly. I mean, this little motor is just absolutely scooting. This is a double reduction motor, originally out of a 666, I think. Anyway, I pulled the remnants of the E-unit out of it, and I didn't even have to disassemble it. All I had to do was grab the E-unit and give it a twist. This side plate is so butchered that it just literally fell out. And it was a dead short inside of it someplace. Anyway, there was no repairing it. And like I said, I took it to the bench to actually start disassembling it. I was going to pull the wheels off, get the bearings, the axles, the wheels, the brush plate, the brushes, the springs, you know, whatever I could scavenge off of this. And I figured, well, I'm not really busy tonight. So it was a bit of therapy, another day without going insane. So it gave me something to do. So in any case, just a few minutes work, and this butchered old motor is up and running. And not only running, it's running perfectly. I mean, it's actually really incredible what you can do with these old Marx motors. You can see it's maintaining a good constant speed all the way around the rail. It's a double reduction motor. There's absolutely nothing wrong with the mechanics of it. It's just somebody butchered it. And why people do this, I don't know. It boggles me when I see a motor in this condition where somebody has just literally, you know, pried this thing apart. And what the point was, I have no idea, because all they do is wind up ruining the motor. You know, this motor was never going to run again, ever. That's why I got it for $3. But there's definitely more than $3 worth of parts in it. And not only that, I can now add a set of push rods to it, put a crossbar on it, and put it in a locomotive. It's a double reduction motor. It's up and running. Granted, it runs forward only, but it runs. And it's a double reduction motor. I mean, you put side rods on this and a crossbar, you put this in a locomotive, no one's ever going to know the motor actually looks like this. And as you see, this motor is just absolute junk. It's been absolutely trashed by some half-wit with a screwdriver going in there and prying that E-unit. Why? Who knows? I have no idea at all why people do this kind of stuff. But I see these motors a lot. And this is one of the worst ones I've seen, actually. But as you see, a double reduction motor that is up and running just absolutely perfectly. You know, there's nothing mechanically wrong with this motor at all. It runs forward only, but it's running. Like I said, you put some side rods on this, put a crossbar on it, drop this into a locomotive, and you have a running locomotive. In this case, total cost was $3. The other motor is now in that switcher, which was also $3. So I got both of these for $6, and it's really difficult to beat that. So rather than pulling it apart, it gave me something to do, so I just put a couple minutes in it, rewired it, and got it up and running. Repaired that contactor plate, put a contactor on it, put a spring on it, did the bypass on the E-unit, and this old motor is up and running. Actually quite incredible. It gave me something to do. Whether I'm going to leave it as a running motor or cannibalize it, I have no idea. I don't like to cannibalize a running motor. I mean, obviously this thing's running perfectly. Like I said, you put a pair of push rods on this, put a front crossbar on it, you can drop this into an old 490 shell and it gives you a running locomotive. And it would look absolutely perfect. No one would know this motor was butchered. You know, all this is hidden. But in any case, I just want to do a video to document this. As you see, this thing was just absolute junk. I mean, in every sense of the word. It was an old, butchered motor. And you can see how I did that repair for the contactor plate. It's just a glob of epoxy putty holding an old drill bit across the front to capture the contactor. Put a spring into it, put a contactor on it, and wired it to do the E-unit bypass. As you see, it was worth the time it took to do it. No doubt about that. Anyway, it gave me something to do, a bit of Marx therapy. So I just want to do a quick video on this. As I always stress, don't overlook the junk. Just because something's junk when you get it doesn't mean it's going to be junk when you're finished with it. Does it look nice? No, it doesn't. It's been butchered, literally. Some half-wit got in there with a screwdriver and literally just butchered this motor. It was never going to run again. And yet a few minutes work. And you put a set of push rods on this, put a front crossbar on it. You can drop it into a locomotive shell, and you have a running locomotive with a double reduction motor. And once this is installed in a shell, no one's ever going to see the motor. No one would ever know it was actually this badly butchered. It would look like a typical Marx running motor. And as you see, it was worth the time it took. It works, it runs well. This thing will run the rest of my life now. So what am I going to do with it? I have no idea. I just wanted something to do tonight. So rather than tearing it apart and cannibalizing it, I figured I'd go ahead and see if I could get it running. So that was the result. A Marx double reduction motor for $3 that is up and running. Running forward only, but it's running. And it's running really, really well. Like I said, you drop this in a locomotive, put some push rods on it, you got yourself a locomotive for $3. Really difficult to beat that. So just a quick video. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to drop me an email, BENZTRAINZ@gmail.com. And as always, thank you for watching.